So,
What about sex and driving a car?
yeah, I knew somebody would find that before we got to the end, right? There is one section in here that's called sex and driving a car. And hey, I just love the idea of putting those two things together. It's total indulgence, right? But you'll understand where it comes from. And as I say in there, I take no responsibility if you try to do that.
You want for any suggestions?
What? Yeah. So, I don't know, any questions about the book or anything like that? If not, we'll get to the important aspect of deciding. Anybody got
When you mentioned about an email,
Right.
about these long things, do you have
A hot
did
list.
you make one up?
Yes, I'm going to make up a hot list.
Yeah.
So I've created a new email account for this. It's Rawnsley333@gmail, right? So, and I'm going to have a list there, which will just be all the various online references, and they'll all have their hyperlinks, right? So if you just kind of keep that up, and then you can click over them backwards and forwards. I suggest having a computer nearby if you can. I've also said that if you can't access any of these things through the internet, just send me an email and I'll put it on a CD for a small fee, you know. And really, what I'm trying to do with this book is it's really designed just to help me expand from where I am now, right? So kind of like it's very much a beginning this in terms of where I see myself going next. It's been 5 years, as Lorna said, 5 years almost to the day. I think the first course was something called the 2-week course at Encore, where we were deciding whether there was anybody in Cornwall who would actually turn out to listen to this stuff, right? And yeah, Denise was there.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have heard one word what you said. Yes.
Gone through?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a few people thinking that anyway. But no, but it's and it's been an interesting journey because a lot of what you're going to find in here is stuff that I've learned in the last 5 years. Much of it's what I've learned in the last 5 years. I had some going in, and then you're going to find the spiral in there, which Dawn brought us. The spiral, I don't profess to know. And Bruce Lipton's in there, the biologist, and he came through a couple of other people who were on that first course. And so we've had it's been a wonderful, wonderful 5 years.
And you brought in some
Nice people, yeah, some lovely people. We've discovered all sorts of lovely people around town. And our shaman, we have him there, who's been visiting us a couple of times. There's any people who are doing program stuff other than that. But yeah, no, Bill, yes.
Will you be doing a course on the quantum prayer game?
Well, I mean, it's hard to beat the last one we did, but I'm sure it will come up, right? Because it was, what we got out of that was quite a remarkable prayer. I probably would give it another shot, but right now I'm going to be pushing the sort of science and spirituality aspects of this, because I think the last chapter in this is a course and how to run a course, right? So how to do it on your own without me, because all the resources are there. All the online resources are there, and if there's any PowerPoint presentations, I'm prepared to send them to people free of charge, nothing, just so that this is to get the word out about the quantum, and to have people understand that the quantum is not something to be feared. It's something that brings us right back to a sort of a spirituality that many of us have understood. It connects right back to religion at all levels. I mean, and I think the fact that the religion is kind of opening up a little bit at the moment. We've got some interesting things going on with the Pope, right? I should introduce Andrea Harrison here, who we're going to collaborate on presenting this in Williamstown this winter to the religious community, or the faith-based community, I like to call them, right? Through all of the churches and in the area. So I'm quite interested about that. Giselle, yeah?
I feel like I was part of quantum prayer.
You were?
Well, anyway, because you cannot repeat the same thing. It's stepping stone. The next one would be totally different.
Well, I've done it 3
You
times.
cannot do the same thing over because it would never be.
No, it would never be the same. I've done it 3 times, it's never been the same. The truth is that, you know, I can't avoid the fact that your prayer was, the prayer that came out of the last one was, and it was because I'd learned from the previous 2. I'd let go. The first 2 I managed much more. It was me, the consultant, because one of the things that has morphed in that period is, you know, me, the consultant, is morphed, right? So by letting go and letting go to you, that's how we got the really good prayer, right? I didn't, you know, because you basically took over the process at about, I think it was about week 5 or 6, right? You guys took it on, yeah, and it was great. It was marvelous. So that doesn't undermine the other 2 courses that I did, because I know we had lots of
They're
fun
all
there.
stepping stones.
Yeah, oh, they were.
This one will be even
They were learning.
different.
So yeah.
How has there been any kind of reaction from the religious community, establishment?
Well, Andrea's here, right? She's come to meet us all because she was interested to hear there was this group, the forum, and there was a bunch of folks here. She's going to come and talk to us about Christianity in November. And she's going to, as I say, we are collectively, as a partnership, putting this on in Williamstown, basically to test how easy it would be for, well, from my perspective, is to test how easy it would be for somebody else to facilitate this information. Do they need to have some training in advance, or could they go straight in and do it? Because that's what I want to have happen. I want it to be sort of spread out there. So, you know, that's, thanks Debbie. So, but the religious community, we have a couple of ex-priests on our group, right, who join us regularly, and if I were to tell you that you know that how we've morphed in 5 years. 5 years ago, when we started, 4.5 years, I don't know, Dawn might be saying this, but the idea of prayer, the word prayer, right, was a very emotive thing in the course, right? Whether you know, is it going to be a prayer because of the word prayer? And 5 years later, we're no longer threatened by those things because we see prayer and intentionality very much, you know, sort of operating. They're the same thing if we organise it the same way. They're very much the same thing. And from what I can see about intentionality, where it's more successful than prayer is because it does a better job of identifying the target of what is it you're really trying to affect. In terms of whether there's anything, Susan asked me whether there's anything new in this, any insight. The only thing I would claim, I could lay a couple of claims, right? One is that I don't think I've ever seen in any of the books that I've written the words intentionality and influence connected as I've connected them. I believe that, you know, we've grown up in this cause and effect world, right, where we've been taught, you know, cause and effect. That's what science teaches us. What quantum science teaches us is intention and influence. No certainties, no certainties. So it's influence. And so I've connected those 2 things together. I don't think I've ever seen them connected quite the same way. So it's kind of where I'm going probably with another book. But the other thing is the notion that the barrier between the what we call the physical world and what we call the metaphysical world has changed. It has changed, but we don't realise that because nobody's told us. And that is important because what we are taught is that the barrier really is scientifically knowledgeable stuff is physical. Non-scientific, what have you, is metaphysical. But much of what's in quantum physics is metaphysical. And that metaphysical nature, we've demonstrated it over the last 50 years. We've demonstrated that it in fact works because it's right behind all of our economies, it's right behind the electronics industries, the communications industry. Quantum physics is behind it. 30% of the GDP of the Western world traces somewhere back to quantum physics. quantum mechanics. Right? So we know it works, but the way it works is not nicely in this normal versus paranormal. In fact, that barrier is moved. And once we realize it's moved, it's very empowering, because now we know that these things that go on in the paranormal are no longer paranormal, they're normal, absolutely normal. So I think I make a good connection there relative to that notion of the barrier moving. And beyond that, one last insight, and that is, if you make that notion that things move on and that we've moved across, if you imagine the big problem that we sometimes is, you say we're creating the world, you know, that you as the observer create the world. Well, how do we do that, right? How is that possible for us to be creating what's out there? Well, if you imagine it is created in your mind, and that it's created in a place that can instantly communicate with itself across great distances, which is what the quantum world says the particles can do. So if you imagine that your mind creates the out there at the same time as it's creating it in your mind, which may or may not be in your head, or pointing at your head, but it may or may not be in your head, it may be outside of your head. But your mind is creating that at the same time. What you then get is your brain receiving the image a few nanoseconds later via your eyes. So you get this creation. Now we get time coming into it, because that's the movement of light as it gets to your brain, and we collapse it in the brain, and we can see what it is that's out there. We recognize now what happens sometimes is those things don't always jive, because we've created it in the mind, and now it comes back from the reality, we see something slightly different. Those things are what I call the opportunities for the collective consciousness to communicate with us, where those things just don't quite jive the way they should do. So there is a mechanism, if you take the quantum nature of fields and forces and all of those good things, there is a way that we can collapse the world out there, as well as at the same time as receiving it subsequently afterwards. So that's about the only things that I've contributed that are, I think, my own thinking. Go on, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to say, when you were mentioning prayer, we had two hot button words. One was God, and
Yes.
the other was prayer.
True. Yes,
And
yes.
it just seems like over the course of the years, with the group, if the word God is mentioned, we know we can use the word amongst ourselves if we want to,
Yes.
and know that
It means something to us.
We're always learning more and more about what it means to us.
Right.
And prayer, using the word intentionality, we kind of lose the baggage that both prayer and God had before, and we're able to. So I think that's the way
but we definitely moved a long way.
Sure, yes.
5 years, there's no doubt about that. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now, and you can come buy some books and go have a coffee and all those good things, right? Hey, how about that, right? So, thank you very much.